Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film. Thank you all for joining us for our first hybrid edition where we have films in theater and we have films virtually as well. I'm very, very excited that we're showing the film Landlocked both in theater and virtually. I think everybody's really going to like it. Let me read a brief description and then we'll jump into a Q&A. In the new film Landlocked, a man reunites with his estranged transgender father as they journey to scatter his late mother's ashes off the Georgia coast. We have the cast and crew for the film here. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and then we'll ask them some questions.
I'm Tim Hall. I'm the writer and director of the movie.
I'm Leslie Hall, a producer.
I'm Delia Kropp. I play Brianna.
And I'm Dustin. I play Nick. I forgot the character's name for a second. Nick, yeah.
Thank you all so very much for joining us. Our programmers really, really like this film. So I always like to just start with a basic question and go from there. I mean, Timothy, how did this project come up?
Well, our previous movie, we played the 2017 Atlanta Film Festival, and we won the Georgia Film Award there, and which was incredible and shocking. And Dustin and I started talking that weekend because it came with a rather generous equipment, a grant to a local equipment rental house here in Atlanta. And I knew that I wanted to tell a parent-child story, and I think this was 2017. I think for me, growing up in the South and growing up I'm from Macon originally, growing up in a very conservative area. And while I consider myself a Christian, I feel, I don't know, I feel quite, I have a hard time connecting with a lot of mainstream Christianity and a certain embrace of right-wing politics and just basic characteristics that I feel reflects the love and compassion of Jesus Christ. And I, particularly in this moment in the political movement that had been embraced, it just felt like living in a bizarro world. And I'm very passionate about telling stories here in the South, and I feel like I don't see the South as I know it in film very much. I feel like, we're not all sitting on creaky front porches drinking tea out of mason jars. I feel like the South is a haunted but wonderful place, and there's a real duality. There's a real, even now, there's progress, but obviously there's forces trying to pull back at things. And essentially at this point in time, I wanted to tell a story about compassion and family and in the beginning of this relationship. And I think I felt a lot of frustration, a lot of anger about kind of where I think a lot of mainstream Christianity had gone politically, the things that they had embraced. And I just felt like I wanted to put something in the world that I wanted to take my frustration and anger and hopefully make something healing and cathartic. And I wanted to tell this story of family and this parent-child and just this first step of this relationship existing again, and just our ability to have compassion for one another, even if we are not, completely, even if we're different broadly.
Okay. Was there any particular inspiration for the film?
There's some things, I don't know how much I want to say out loud, but there's some, some family situations, some dynamics. There's some, I think just some real harsh legalism in the church or amongst people I've known. This is not an autobiography by any means, but it all sort of came from a certain place of just wanting to put some bit of compassion in the world.
Okay. Leslie, in terms of producing this film, how hard was it to get this film made?
Well, I definitely played many roles.
Okay.
And helped out a lot in pre-production and post-production, and was present and helped out in every possible way. And so it was challenging in many ways, but it was also really fun and rewarding. And I think you have to always just keep pushing. Like no one's asking you to make this. And so you have to just keep putting the pieces together. And so it's really fun for me to see Tim's vision come together. And it's fun to work as a team and to get to know the cast and crew and make it all come together.
Okay. All right. Dustin, can you tell me a little bit about Nick and what all the character is going through as the film opens?
As the film opens, a lot. I mean, he's trying to open a restaurant. Wants to be a big bad chef, and is trying to support his family, and not doing a very good job at it because it's very hard to run a business. I've worked in restaurants like half my life. And most restaurants go under. It is very difficult to get one to be sustainable. And so I had some connection in that way. Not that I've ever tried to start a restaurant, but I've been a disgruntled employee at many restaurants.
Okay.
But no, I mean, the biggest thing is, his mother passed away and is looking for a connection. It's interesting because like I talked a lot with Tim and Leslie about this because I struggled a lot with the character because I was just like, well, why is he asking to do this? Why is he seeking out his father who abandoned him long ago if he's so upset? And why are all these things happening? And it was interesting because I think the character has like we kind of came to the conclusion that there's like a conscious objective and a subconscious objective that he had. And like the conscious objective is I need to reconnect. That way I can put my past behind me and move on with my life. And the subconscious objective being the opposite of that I'm actually just a teenager who kind of needs to have a temper tantrum and reconnect.
Okay.
His pitch, there's a little short scene where he's pitching an investor about the restaurant. And he's talking about recreating home, your mother's recipes, your grandmother's recipes. Everything he's doing, he's trying to return to the sense of family and wholeness. And even if he thinks that he's wanting to see Brianna to sort of put her behind him, he's really, now with his mother gone, particularly, he's seeking to have a family again. He's seeking to feel whole again, I think, in multiple facets of his life.
Okay. Delia, sort of the same question for you. Tell us what Brianna's going through at the beginning of the film, or when we meet the character.
Yeah, sure. The call from Nick comes pretty much out of the blue. But there is definitely, she's very open to a reconnection. And that desire really just intensifies as the film proceeds, as she gets to actually be with her son, and eventually to even see via Zoom her grandchild. I think there's a point in the film where she decides, hey, I'm not just along for this one ride, but I want more.
Okay.
At that point, is I think the way I've been playing it, more for a future.
Okay. How would you say, and this is a question for, I guess, any of you, how do these two characters influence each other? And what kind of change is there throughout the course of Landlocked?
I think one of my favorite parts of the film is Brianna's role. In many ways, Brianna wasn't present for Nick's childhood. And what you were saying, Delia, about how there's that shift where she decides she wants to be present. She models that vulnerability and that willingness to be uncomfortable and to have that relationship with Nick. That's what ends up changing Nick's heart and opening him up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me that one of the biggest things was when we're it's later in the movie when we're in St. Simon's and we're just talking about our memories and our experiences. I'm talking about how I don't like the beach and all this stuff, and she's talking about she doesn't like golf, and I'm like, oh, you love golf, what are you talking about? And she talks about like, oh, it's just a role she had to play. And I think for me that was the biggest thing that I connect to. And like, as far as your question of influencing, is it's just he's having this moment of going, wait a minute, everything that I thought is not actually what was happening. You know what I mean? Like your memories are not always accurate to the reality of things. And he was seeing things through a very selfish lens, as any child usually is. You know, you don't really think about what your parents are going through. You just think about what you're going through. And as an adult, he's forced to go, oh, this is, there was a lot more going on here. And I had the wrong idea the whole time. And I've held a lot of grudges for many years. And I probably shouldn't have, you know.
Okay. All right. Delia, this is your debut. Can you talk a little bit about, debuting in such a huge role?
I'm sorry, I'm getting hit by both a text message and by a phone call right now, so pardon me. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's my debut in a feature film.
Okay.
I've done a few very short things, industrial videos and so on, but the reason I was attracted to this is that Tim's script that he co-authored is just a story about a family. The fact that the father is transgender was probably a bigger factor 23 years ago.
Okay.
You know, in that it was probably not the only, but probably the main thing that precipitated the breakup. And to some degree also was an obstacle, in maintaining a relationship with Nick. But for the most part, story of a broken family, that has had a loss and is seeking to reform. And it's very hard to find transgender stories that are universal, that everyone can relate to, that don't focus on the exotic or, dare I say, the freakish. That are tragic.
I think you froze for a moment.
Marginalize us because it shows us and that don't, as people that don't hold on here. Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. And we can edit some of this.
Okay. Yeah, but such films that focus on the transitioning or that focus on the discrimination and so forth, they actually end up doing sometimes the opposite of what they tend to do. Instead of creating compassion, they create a kind of sympathy.
Okay. Timothy, I wanted to ask you, I'm sorry. I thought.
It's hard. It's the connection's pretty bad there. It looks like.
Which just further all the same challenges and pretty much all the same needs.
Okay.
And they're so rare, and I'm very thankful for Tim to include me in this.
Sure. Tim, I've seen, this is not the first time that you have dealt with LGBTQ themes in your work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think in myself not being a member of the LGBTQ community, I think, and Dustin being one of my kind of closest collaborators, I think, it's maybe some of this has come more from just our friendship or living in the South and never quite connecting or fitting in, or just also wanting to, I think I alluded to earlier, but just, I think the mainstream Christianity has failed on such a massive level to just show basic decency and compassion to really the LGBTQ community or people of color, anyone that differ in any kind of way. And I think just trying to give voice to characters and people that I've known, or just trying to tell stories of hopefully a changing and evolving South in some kind of way.
Okay. Well, was it important for you to hire a transgender performer for this role?
Absolutely. I mean, really where we're at now, I mean, it didn't even feel like an option to not, and it's, again, I think important to, because there are so many wonderful transgender performers out there, and to give somebody an opportunity to, because I mean, my co-writer Jonathan and I mean, we can, write a script and do the best we can on paper to try and create a three-dimensional character, but the hope is to then find someone who, in any realm, whether I'm writing a mother, which I'm not, or any kind of character, do the best we can on paper, then find somebody that's really going to bring lived in experience to it. And we didn't even consider, but it would feel wrong even to consider casting someone who was not transgender for this role. And I feel like it's just a massive missed opportunity to bring even greater nuance and detail, because I think we did the best we could on paper, but then, praise the Lord, finding Delia and then collaborating with her to try and bring, getting her thoughts on the script as we had it, and then trying to incorporate her thoughts and her feedback and to try and bring an even deeper honesty to this character, and to do this justice. Just felt so important, and kind of like we couldn't have made the movie if we hadn't found the right person. So forever grateful we found Delia.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I want to go back to Delia, because there is a lot of controversy these days when casting directors hire cisgender performers for transgender roles. I'm so glad this was not the case here, and this felt very authentic. But can you talk, Delia, a little bit about that and why it's so important to have a transgender performer play a transgender role?
Sure thing. Yeah. Well, really, there are two arguments for this. One is representation.
Sure.
Simply that we're here and we have been so left out of the entertainment industry. But I think really the stronger argument is authenticity. We have certain experiences, we have certain perspectives that a cisgender person just is not going to have. And you don't know that since our lives are kind of foreign to you in a way. When somebody, wins an Oscar, let's just say, for playing a transgender character, you go, wow, they did a fantastic job. When in fact, they represented a cisgender lens, a cisgender perspective on us, which is why we end up being so exotic and so tragic and so on and so forth. Besides the scripts encouraging that. I think the main thing I brought to Landlocked was just that I'm a human being. And I have the same quirks and personalities and needs and difficulties that anyone else does.
Okay.
And so the opportunities for pathos and for playing into the tropes, and they're in this script to some degree. I mean, they just are. I avoided those. I did my best not to make her seem a tragic person, that she has had tragic things happen in her life. but she's overcome them. She's come from a really bad place. And even though she's just a teller in a bank or credit union, as opposed to a doctor, she's done pretty good. In fact, that change, I think, is part of why her life is better. I don't think she liked being a doctor all that much. So yeah, normalcy, is that the right word? Like you-ness is something I think that really only a transgender person could bring to this. So that was one of my goals.
Okay, so this is a question for all of you. I mean, Timothy, Leslie, you live in it. You live in Georgia. But for the others, what's it like coming down here to film?
Well, I'm originally from Texas, so and I went to school with Tim in North Carolina as well. So I know the South pretty well, and I grew up in a very conservative Christian family who is still very conservative and very Christian, and we like to argue about it a lot. But I mean, I love Georgia. I love the South. I love everything about the culture, except for, you know, the negative stereotypes, which I think a lot of us have encountered. So coming down to Georgia wasn't that weird. It was pretty great for me. But I know Delia came from Chicago, and it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah. In the short period of time that I was down there, I felt very safe. Tim and Dustin and our DP had actually flown me down a few months before so that I would get a feel for the city and for them. And honest to God, the persons I encountered were very kind, and I never had any transphobic experiences. But again, when you're doing a film, you're living in this little bubble, right? Mm-hmm. So my impression of Atlanta and the Atlanta area is that it's like what Tim said, it's a culture in transition. Mm-hmm. You know, it may have the roots in something else, but it's moving towards a much broader, dynamic and inclusive kind of society. And which is one of the exciting things about doing this film, to be a part of that.
Exactly. What areas of the state did you film in?
We filmed, well, Dustin's home at the beginning of the movie was our previous home and in Smyrna. So we filmed in Smyrna, and then we filmed a little bit in the city, and then we went down to St. Simon's for 3 days. So really up here and then down at the coast.
Yeah.
But yeah, and what Delia said, I started making short films in middle school, living in Macon, and I felt like I was born on the wrong side of the country, and I never would have, imagined Georgia would have changed like this in terms of film production, this being a place to be. And then at the end of the day, so many things can be frustrating and frustrating in terms of like who the governor is right now. But it's like, I think to me, what's exciting is being here in the South at this, what to me at least feels like this point of just teetering where particularly Georgia, and the way that Georgia is historically kind of led, and obviously with Atlanta and being a more progressive place, I feel like this is a tremendously exciting place to be at the moment in terms of film and in terms of the way that the South is changing. And I think despite the apocalyptic moment we find ourselves in at the time, I'm very excited and hopeful about.
Did you all film this before COVID?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was in when was it? It was a long time ago now. But
in January of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's low budget when you're filming at the director's house and living in the basement.
Yeah, I was looking at the notes you sent on Film Freeway. It's like, wow, the budget was pretty low. I mean, I would have never guessed. I mean, you did a great job with that kind of budget. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I wanted to read your director's statement because I wanted to ask you about this. You're right.
Ooh.
The director's statement. I am haunted by the paradox of life in the American South. Being Southern involves reconciling both pride and shame. You were born inheriting a dark and complicated past. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think living in the South as a straight white male, it's hard to not feel the weight of I think the darkness of the history here. But I think, you know, you can have this feeling of wanting to bury your head in the sand in some kind of way. But I feel an added weight of trying to help be a part of some sort of solution and in progress in the South. And, you know, I think basically, I think my charge as a storyteller and as a follower of Christ is to have empathy for all human beings and find myself in all human beings. And I think I for whatever reason just feel a need to make movies, and I just want to tell. I'm fascinated by ordinary people, and you know, I feel like hopefully maybe in some little way us making these character films and telling stories of, hopefully, like I say, how I don't feel like I see the South in film very much, contributing, you know, in some small little way, will hopefully change somebody's outlook on the South, or somebody, you know, we had a screening in North Carolina, and a man was there that I think had gone to a church we used to go to, and spoke to us afterwards that he had a son who was transitioning. And I think the movie, I think, really convicted on how much he had failed to deal with his child and with any kind of compassion or love or understanding. And I mean, that's what your hope in some small kind of way is, that what you're doing, even on the scale that we're doing it, will matter, or maybe move or change, or, you know, be a help to somebody. And so, I mean, honestly, that was one of the best parts of this whole experience, which is hearing somebody reflecting on their own life and kind of what the film had them thinking and reassessing, and how they dealt with their own child.
Okay. Dustin and Delia, what's next for you?
Great question. I'll let Delia go first.
Oh,
No.
okay. I'll let you think about yours.
Yeah, I need to make
Dustin.
something up. So.
Well, I've recently been in a series of Zoom theatrical productions here. We are in Chicago, finally starting to do theater live, but it's on a very limited basis. Really, the thrust of what I'm doing now is an initiative of my own invention here, and that is, the name of it is Identity Matters.
Okay.
And it's to talk about all identity, all human identity, in depth, and to start addressing the difficulties we have in talking to people that are different than us. The way that we normally, as an advocate, I can say this, we normally talk about things like gender and race, is a little bit like talking down.
Okay.
You know, this is the way it is, this is the way it should be, and shame on you white cisgender straight people for not getting on board. And I think that's destructive, quite frankly. I think we shoot ourselves in the foot. So I'm backing up a bit, and through public speaking and online content, providing, I think, a different perspective, you know, that we all function in pretty much the same way, regardless of the slot that we may have been born into.
Okay.
And understanding yourself and your own identity is step one for that.
Sure. Dustin.
Yeah. So I'm mainly like a video editor right now. So that's what I do for work. So still working in film-ish. And I know we made a horror short film with a buddy of mine that we just like submitted to film festivals the other day. So hopefully it'll get in somewhere. And then hopefully what's next is hopefully when I go meet Tim, we can decide on another movie.
Nice.
We'll see.
Delia, I wanted to go back to you briefly. We had a little bit of a connection issue when I was asking this question, so I want to go back to it. And obviously, we'll do some editing. But can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned this was your first big feature role. I mean, can you talk a little bit about, having such a huge role in a film as your first feature?
Yeah. What to say about that? I've played big roles on stage before, and I approached it pretty much in the same way. You got to know what your character's backstory is before the story starts, where they go over the course of it. The main challenge is, of course, you don't rehearse in a film.
Okay.
But Tim did a really great job of organizing conversations beforehand. I think this was pre-Zoom, so most of them were on the telephone, as well as during my visit, right, to Atlanta. So Dustin and I also spent a lot of time talking things over ahead of time. And the thrill, the positives of doing a film is that, you're pretty much aware that you're going to get 1 or 2 chances at this, and that's it. Whereas in stage, I mean, it's one performance out of a whole month or 2.
Exactly.
So you want to get it right. It provides a focus and an excitement to nailing it on the first try, and that was pretty cool.
Nice. So Tim and Leslie, what's next for both of you? And second part of that question is, what's next for the film? Where will this film go next?
Oh, on to the second part. We're playing the Cinema Diverse, the Palm Springs LGBTQ
nice.
Tomorrow, actually, and then next weekend on the 25th, we're in Winston-Salem Out at the Movies, and then the weekend after that, we're out on film, and then the week after that, we're at the Buffalo International, and then later that week we're at the Charlotte Film Festival, and then in early November we're playing I think it's the Mezipatra Queer Film Festival in Prague. So Dustin and I are going to Europe for the first time. And and then we're hopefully some more. We're waiting to hear from like 50 others, so hopefully we'll get a handful of others. But I'm planning to begin our next movie. It's called Lost Gospel. It's kind of a mosaic of life in the South with hopefully a very varied cast, and it's really 6 stories, kind of loosely interconnected of people all over the South and all different kinds of people, but all essentially dealing with loss in some kind of way. And you can expect to see Dustin in that film, and he'll also be producing that movie. He doesn't know that he's going to be producing the film.
Okay.
It's all news to me.
He knows now. He knows now.
And then we're working on another movie. It's yet untitled. And you'll see Gooch in that one as well.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations on such a great festival run. I mean,
thank you. It's such an honor to be here at Out on Film, and obviously being Atlanta natives, we're thrilled and excited to. I know we'll have Dustin and several of our other cast members who are local here, so we're super excited.
Yeah. It's in person, right?
It's in person.
Oh, I'm excited. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have not done any live Q&As in a couple of years, so I'm probably pretty rusty. I'm probably gonna not know what it's like to have people in front of me. I'm gonna be used to it again, so it's gonna be an odd to see an actual human being. But we're looking forward to it. I'm greatly looking forward to having this kind of conversation, with you live. Delia, Dustin, Tim, Leslie, thank you so much for this film. Thank you for joining us for this Q&A. It's been a great conversation. Out on Film runs September 23rd through October 3rd in person and virtual, and Landline is one of the many great films that we have. Thank you all for taking the time to talk to us tonight, and we enjoyed the film.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.